6 years back, my sister took my millionaire fiancé, the man I was just about to Wednesday. Now, at our mom's funeral, she showed up with him, flashing her big diamond ring, and said, "Sad for you, still single at 38. I got the man, the cash, and the mansion." I grinned, looked at her, and said, "Have you met my husband yet?" When I called him over, her smile dropped because the truth was, my husband was. My own sister stole my fiancé and ripped my life apart. 6 years later, as she walked into my mother's funeral flashing his ring, she had no idea the secret I was about to drop. The air in the funeral home was thick with unspoken grief and hushed condolences. I stood by my father, barely holding myself together, knowing her arrival was inevitable, dreading it with every fiber of my being. I was 38 years old, and honestly, seeing Mia walk in with Leo after all this time, I expected to shatter. But a strange calm settled over me instead. She had no clue what was coming. Our mother, Grace, had always been the absolute glue of our family. Growing up in a modest home outside Atlanta, she taught me strength and dignity. We shared a special bond that deepened as I got older. Even after I moved to downtown Atlanta and built my career as a marketing executive, I called her almost daily. She was my confidant, my advisor, my biggest cheerleader. 8 months ago, when she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, my world truly crumbled. Despite aggressive treatments, we knew time was limited. Mom faced it with remarkable grace, more concerned for us than her own suffering. Her final weeks were peaceful, surrounded by loved ones in the home where she'd raised us. She slipped away holding my hand, making me promise to find peace in my life. 6 years earlier, at 32, my life looked perfect on paper. Great career, friends, a nice apartment. Something was missing though. I worked 60-hour weeks, dated occasionally, nothing serious. Then, I met Leo Reynolds at a charity gala through my college friend, Sarah. Leo was charismatic, with a captivating smile and a confidence that filled any room. A self-made tech millionaire at 36, he was a magazine success story. Our connection was instant. We shared a love for art, travel, ambitious goals. After our first date at an exclusive restaurant overlooking Charleston Harbor, I called Mom, gushing about someone special. Our relationship took off. Weekend trips to Hilton Head Island, symphony box seats, intimate dinners, that became our normal. Leo was attentive, generous, always thoughtful gifts, elaborate dates. After 18 months, during a private dinner on a yacht in Charleston Harbor, he proposed with a 5-carat diamond. I said yes without a second thought. My parents were thrilled, especially Mom, who immediately started envisioning the perfect wedding. Leo had the resources to make any dream come true, and Grace insisted we shouldn't hold back. Then there was my younger sister, Mia, 2 years my junior. Our relationship was complicated. We were close as kids, but constant competition simmered. Mia always wanted what I had: toys, friends, attention. If I achieved something, she had to match or exceed it. Mom always tried to keep the peace, giving us each special time. Despite our history, I chose Mia as my maid of honor. Mom said it would bring us closer, and I wanted to believe that as adults, we were past childish jealousy. When I introduced Mia to Leo at a family dinner, she complimented him excessively. I noticed her touching his arm, laughing at his jokes, but I brushed it off. Just Mia being charming, I thought. We held our engagement party at my parents' traditional-style home. Mia helped Mom with decorations, fairy lights strung across the backyard, flowers arranged perfectly. Throughout the evening, I caught Mia watching Leo across the room. But when our eyes met, she'd quickly smile and raise her glass to me. Later that night, as guests left, Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. "Chloe, dear, I noticed Mia seems quite taken with Leo," she said carefully, arranging leftover appetizers. "She's just being friendly, Mom," I replied, washing champagne flutes. "Besides, she's dating that pharmaceutical rep, Adam." Mom nodded, but didn't seem convinced. "Just be careful, honey. You know how your sister can get when you have something she admires." I kissed her cheek, assuring her everything was fine. "We're adults now, Mom. Mia's happy for me. I'm sure of it." How wrong I was. How painfully, devastatingly wrong. 3 months before our wedding, I started noticing subtle shifts in Leo. He worked later, answering texts at odd hours with excuses about international clients. Our usual Friday date nights were often rescheduled due to emergency meetings. When we were together, he was distracted, checking his phone constantly, only half listening to our conversations. More concerning was his criticism. My laugh, which he once found endearing, was suddenly too loud in public. My favorite blue dress, previously adored, now made me look washed out. Even my habit of reading before bed became annoying, the light keeping him awake. Meanwhile, Mia called more frequently, always asking about wedding details. "I just want everything perfect for my big sister," she'd say. Though Mom handled most planning, Mia volunteered for vendor meetings I couldn't make due to work. One Thursday evening, Leo and I had dinner at an upscale Italian restaurant. He barely made eye contact, responding to my work stories with one-word answers. When his phone buzzed for the 5th time, I hit my limit. "Is there something more important happening elsewhere?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light despite my growing irritation. "Sorry, just work stuff," he muttered, putting his phone face down. You know how it is before a product launch. Later that week, doing laundry, I noticed an unfamiliar, heavy floral perfume on Leo's collar. Nothing like my subtle scent. When I confronted him, he explained he'd been in meetings all day with a potential investor, Olivia Shaw, who apparently wore overpowering perfume and had hugged him goodbye. The explanation seemed plausible. I wanted to believe him. I called my friend Sarah, expressing my concerns over coffee the next morning. "Every relationship gets jittery before the wedding," Sarah reassured me, stirring her latte. "Parker and I fought constantly the month before, and now we've been married 5 years. But the knot in my stomach wouldn't dissolve." Mom noticed my anxiety during our weekly lunch. "You seem distracted, sweetheart," she said, touching my hand. "Wedding stress or something else?" I forced a smile. "Just busy with the final arrangements. Everything's fine." But everything wasn't fine. I started trying harder, thinking maybe I'd taken Leo for granted. I booked a spa day, bought new lingerie, cooked his favorite meals. The more I tried, the more distant he became. Then came the cake tasting, an appointment Leo had supposedly looked forward to for weeks. That morning, he called, claiming an unexpected meeting. "Mia can go with you," he suggested. "She knows my preferences anyway." When I hung up, I felt sick. How did my sister know my fiancé's cake preferences better than I did? Still, I accepted her offer to join me. The next day, cleaning Leo's car before a dinner party, I found an earring wedged between the passenger seat and center console. A dangling silver earring with a tiny sapphire. I immediately recognized it as Mia's. She'd worn those earrings to my engagement party, a gift from our grandmother. When I showed Leo the earring that evening, his face remained perfectly composed. "Oh, your sister must have dropped it when I gave her a ride to Bloom and Petal last week," he said smoothly. "She mentioned losing an earring." "You never told me you drove Mia to the florist," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Didn't I? It must have slipped my mind. It wasn't important." When I called Mia, her explanation matched his perfectly. Too perfectly. "Oh, thank goodness. I've been looking everywhere for that earring." Leo was kind enough to drive me since my car was in the shop. That night, I couldn't sleep, thoughts racing. Had they rehearsed their story? Was I being paranoid? My weight dropped from stress. Dark circles formed under my eyes. I started seeing a therapist without telling Leo. 3 weeks before the wedding, Leo suggested we postpone. "I'm worried about you, Chloe. You're not yourself lately. Maybe we're rushing things." I broke down, begging him to tell me what was wrong, what I'd done, how to fix it. He held me, assuring me everything was fine, but his eyes were vacant. That night, I woke at 3 a.m. to find Leo's side of the bed empty. From the hallway, I heard his hushed voice from the guest bedroom. "Not now. She'll hear us." I know. Soon, I promise." The next day, I decided to surprise Leo at his office with lunch. My father, David, called as I left my apartment. "Chloe, are you eating properly? Your mother says you've lost too much weight. We're concerned." "I'm fine, Dad. Just pre-wedding jitters." I'm actually bringing Leo lunch right now. Good. That boy better be treating my daughter like a queen. If only he knew. The security guard at Leo's building recognized me and waved me through. On the elevator to the 12th floor, I checked my reflection, trying to smooth the worry lines between my eyebrows. The lunch bag held Leo's favorite sandwich from the deli. When I reached the reception, Brenda, Leo's secretary, looked up, her eyes widening. "Chloe, we weren't expecting you today." Her gaze darted to Leo's closed office door, then back to me. "Leo is in a meeting right now." "That's okay," I said, lifting the lunch bag. "I just brought him lunch. I can wait." Brenda stood quickly, blocking my path. "Actually, he specifically asked not to be disturbed. Perhaps I could let him know you're here." Something in her nervous manner triggered my suspicions. "Is he alone in there, Brenda?" Her hesitation told me everything. Before she could respond, I walked past her and pushed open Leo's office door. The scene burned into my memory forever. Leo leaning against his desk, his hands on my sister's waist, her arms wrapped around his neck, their lips locked in a passionate kiss. Neither noticed me at first, giving me excruciating seconds to absorb every detail. Mia's skirt pushed up, Leo's tie loosened, the familiarity in their embrace that spoke of countless similar moments. When the door clicked shut behind me, they sprang apart. Three faces frozen in a tableau of shock. "Chloe." Leo recovered first, straightening his tie. "This isn't what it looks like." Mia didn't even attempt such a transparent lie. Instead, she lifted her chin defiantly. "We didn't plan this. It just happened." The calm that washed over me was surprising. "How long?" Leo glanced at Mia, then back at me. "Chloe, let's discuss this privately." "How long?" My voice remained steady. "For months," Mia answered. "Since the engagement party." "For months." Nearly half our engagement. While I'd been selecting wedding invitations and choosing floral arrangements, they had been betraying me. Leo moved behind his desk, physically distancing himself as if preparing for a business negotiation. "I didn't mean for this to happen, Chloe. Sometimes feelings change. I was going to tell you after. After what? After the wedding? After our honeymoon. I was trying to find the right time." His voice had the practiced smoothness he used for difficult client meetings. The lunch bag dropped from my hand. "I trusted you, both of you." Mia at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "It just happened, Chloe. We tried to fight it." "Don't call me Chloe." The childhood nickname felt like another violation. "And nothing just happens for 4 months. You made choices. Every secret call, every lie, every time you looked me in the eye, knowing what you were doing." Leo pressed the intercom button. "Brenda, please come in." Moments later, Brenda appeared, pointedly avoiding my gaze. "Please escort Chloe out. She's upset." "I'm escorting myself out," I said, my dignity somehow intact despite feeling shattered inside. "You deserve each other." In the elevator, the tears finally came. By the time I reached my car, I was struggling to breathe between sobs. The drive home remains a blur. I only remember calling my mother from my apartment, curled on the bathroom floor, unable to form coherent sentences. Mom and Dad arrived within the hour, using their emergency key. Mom held me while I told them everything. Dad paced the living room, his face reddening with each detail. "I'll make them both pay for this," he muttered, hand over his heart. "David, your blood pressure," Mom warned, though her own face showed equal fury. The next days passed in a haze of pain. Mom helped me call vendors to cancel wedding arrangements, while Dad handled the financial aspects. When I returned the engagement ring to Leo's apartment, leaving it with the doorman, I couldn't bear to see him. I found Mia had already moved her things in. Most of her clothes were there, family photos arranged on shelves that once held mine. Leo's email about dividing our shared assets was coldly efficient, mentioning Mia had helped him catalog my remaining belongings. The betrayal ran deeper than I initially realized. Through mutual friends, I learned they'd been meeting secretly whenever I worked late or traveled. Mia had pursued him deliberately, finding excuses to see him alone, sending texts and photos when I wasn't around. The incident spread quickly through our social circle. Some friends sided with me, others with Leo, citing his influence. Several admitted they'd noticed flirting between Leo and Mia but hadn't wanted to get involved. Their cowardice stung almost as much as the betrayal. Mom became my lifeline. She brought food, listened to my tearful rants, stayed overnight when loneliness became unbearable. She tried repeatedly to mediate between Mia and me, inviting us to family dinners that inevitably ended in tense silence or bitter arguments. During one such dinner, Mia snapped after I refused to pass her the salt. "You always got everything first, Chloe. The grades, the job, the apartment. For once, I got something before you did." "My fiancé wasn't a prize to be won," I replied, my voice shaking. "He was the man I loved and trusted." Mom put her fork down. "Mia Marie Thompson, apologize to your sister right now." "For what? Being honest? Leo chose me. He loves me now." I stood, napkin thrown onto my plate. "I can't do this anymore, Mom. I'm sorry." It was the last family dinner I attended with Mia present. Dad's heart problems worsened from the stress, requiring medication adjustments and more doctor visits. Mom aged years in. Months, the lines around her eyes deepening as she tried desperately to hold her family together. 6 months after discovering Leo and Mia's betrayal, I hit rock bottom. My therapist diagnosed depression and recommended medication. Work suffered as I struggled to focus, eventually losing a major client after a disastrous presentation where I broke down crying. My boss suggested a leave of absence, but I knew staying in Atlanta, where memories lurked around every corner, would only prolong my suffering. When a marketing director position opened in our Denver branch, I applied immediately. The interview went surprisingly well, my desperation for change perhaps reading as enthusiasm. 2 weeks later, I received the offer. Mom helped me pack my apartment, carefully wrapping photos and mementos. As we sorted through my belongings, she broached the subject that hung between us. "Will you ever consider forgiving Mia?" she asked, sealing a box. I folded sweaters without looking up. "I don't know, Mom. Not now. Maybe not ever." "Forgiveness isn't about them deserving it," she said softly. "It's about freeing yourself." I am freeing myself. I'm moving to Denver. Mom sat beside me on the bed, taking my hands. "Running away isn't the same as healing, sweetheart." Tears filled my eyes. "I need space to even begin to heal. Can you understand that?" She nodded, pulling me into a tight hug. "Promise you'll call. Promise you won't shut us out completely." "I promise." Saying goodbye to my parents was harder than I anticipated. Dad held me longer than usual, his voice gruff with emotion. "You show them, kiddo. Build a life so good they'll choke on their regret." My first weeks in Denver were lonely and doubt-filled. My studio apartment felt sterile and unfamiliar. I worked long hours to avoid going home to empty rooms, eating takeout at my desk, falling into bed exhausted. Then came news that twisted the knife deeper. Mom called one Sunday morning, her voice cautious. "Chloe, I feel you should hear this from me rather than social media. Mia and Leo got married yesterday." The small civil ceremony had been featured in Atlanta society pages. Leo's business connections ensured coverage. The photo showed them beaming outside the courthouse, Mia in a simple white dress, my former engagement ring prominently displayed on her finger. That night was my lowest point. I drank an entire bottle of wine alone, scrolled through old photos of Leo and me, and cried until my eyes swelled shut. I called in sick to work the next day, unable to face the world. But something shifted during those dark hours. As morning light filtered through my blinds, I made a decision. This would be the last day I gave them power over my happiness. I deleted all photos of Leo from my phone, blocked both him and Mia on social media, and took a long shower, imagining my pain washing away down the drain. At work, I threw myself into projects with renewed focus. My boss noticed the change, assigning me to more significant clients. I developed a reputation for creativity and dedication, earning respect in my new office. My first real Denver friend was Natalie Miller, our HR director, who invited me to her book club. Through her, I met other women, slowly building a social circle. Natalie frequently tried to set me up on dates, but I declined. The thought of romantic vulnerability still terrified me. For months into my Denver life, I was sent to a technology conference in Austin to represent our company. On the second evening, I attended a business dinner with potential clients, seated next to Ethan Vance, a tech investor and entrepreneur who had recently relocated from Portland. Ethan was different from Leo in every way. Where Leo had been flashy and charming, Ethan was understated and genuine. His quiet confidence and thoughtful questions drew people in without demanding attention. When he spoke about his work, his passion was evident, but never boastful. He asked for my card after dinner, and I gave it without expectation. To my surprise, he emailed the next morning, asking if I'd like to continue our conversation about digital marketing trends over coffee before the day's sessions. Over the next 3 months, Ethan and I maintained professional contact. He referred clients to my agency, and I introduced him to my Denver business connections. Natalie noticed our frequent work lunches and raised an eyebrow. "He likes you, Chloe. And not just professionally. We're just colleagues," I insisted. "Colleagues don't look at each other the way he looks at you." Eventually, Ethan asked me to dinner at a restaurant unrelated to work. I panicked, almost canceling twice, before forcing myself to go. 20 minutes into the date, discussing our favorite books, I had a full-blown panic attack. My hands shook, breathing became difficult, tears welled in my eyes. Instead of being embarrassed or annoyed, Ethan moved to sit beside me, speaking calmly until my breathing normalized. He drove me home without pressure or questions. The next day, flowers arrived at my office with a note. "No pressure, no expectations. Just hoping you're feeling better, Ethan." That evening, I called him and shared everything about Leo and Mia. He listened without interruption, then shared his own story of heartbreak from his past marriage that ended when his wife left him for his business partner, taking half their joint company in the divorce. "Broken trust leaves scars," he said. "Anyone worth your time will understand that healing isn't linear." Over the following months, we built a foundation of friendship first. Ethan never pushed for more than I could give, respecting my boundaries while remaining steadfastly present. For our 5th date, he cooked dinner at his apartment instead of taking me to a crowded restaurant that might trigger my anxiety. When panic occasionally resurfaced, he knew exactly how to help me through it. For the first time since Leo, I began to believe that maybe, just maybe, trust was possible again. 1 year after moving to Denver, I barely recognized my life. My promotion to senior marketing director came with a corner office overlooking the river. My circle of friends had expanded beyond Natalie to include several close confidants. And most surprisingly, I had fallen deeply in love with Ethan. Unlike Leo's flashy courtship, Ethan's love manifested in consistent, thoughtful ways. He remembered small details like how I preferred oat milk in my coffee or which true crime podcasts I followed. He respected my independence while offering unwavering support. Most importantly, he never compared me to anyone else or tried to change me. I met Ethan's sister, Julia, during her visit from Phoenix. We connected immediately, exchanging numbers and developing our own friendship independent of Ethan. She told me stories of their childhood in Portland, painting a picture of the boy who became the man I was growing to love. My relationship with my parents continued from a distance. I called Mom weekly, carefully steering conversations away from Mia. Dad occasionally joined these calls, his gruff voice softening when telling me how proud he was of my fresh start. I visited twice that year, timing my trips when I knew Mia and Leo would be away. Mom provided occasional updates. Their marriage appeared perfect on social media, Mia posting photos of luxury vacations and charity galas. According to Mom, they'd purchased a large house in Buckhead and were renovating extensively. "Mia asks about you sometimes," Mom mentioned during one call. "What do you tell her?" I asked, stirring pasta sauce on my stove. "That you're doing well, that you're building a new life." "Does she ever express regret?" Mom sighed in her way. "She gets quiet when your name comes up." My therapy continued in Denver, my new therapist helping me process the betrayal and build healthier relationship patterns. I learned to recognize my triggers and communicate boundaries effectively. Slowly, the nightmares about Leo and Mia faded. In June, Ethan surprised me with a weekend trip to Virginia's wine country. We stayed at a charming bed and breakfast surrounded by vineyards, spent afternoons wine tasting, and evenings watching the sunset over Lake Michigan. For the first time in years, I felt completely present and happy without the shadow of past betrayal. On our last evening, walking through a garden filled with early summer blooms at the Denver Botanic Gardens, Ethan stopped beneath a trellis covered in climbing roses. "Chloe," he said, taking both my hands. "This past year, knowing you has been the greatest gift of my life." When he knelt, producing a ring box, panic flashed briefly. Images of Leo's proposal threatened to overshadow this moment. But looking into Ethan's eyes, I saw only sincerity and love. "I'm not asking for an answer today," he said, seeming to read my hesitation. "I just want you to know that whenever you're ready, whether that's tomorrow or next year, I'll be here." Tears filled my eyes, but not from fear or pain. "Yes," I whispered. "I'm ready now." The ring was nothing like the ostentatious diamond Leo had given me. A simple emerald with small diamonds, elegant and understated, like our relationship. That night, I called my parents with the news. Mom cried happy tears. "He sounds wonderful, darling. When can we meet him?" "Soon," I promised. "Very soon." We planned a small wedding, only 30 guests at a historic Denver venue. At Mom's urging, I sent Mia an invitation, more as a gesture toward healing than an expectation of attendance. Her response came via email, brief and cold. "Congratulations on your engagement. Unfortunately, Leo and I have prior commitments on that date. Best wishes for your future." Mom was disappointed but unsurprised. "Give her time, Chloe. This is progress compared to where you both were." Our wedding day arrived, intimate and joyful, with my parents, new friends, and Ethan's family in attendance. Dad walked me down the aisle, whispering, "I haven't seen you this happy in years, kiddo." Ethan's vows acknowledged our journey. "Chloe, I promise to remember that love is both strong and fragile, requiring care and commitment every day. I promise to be worthy of the trust you've given me, knowing how precious and hard one that gift is." We built our life together in Denver, buying a brownstone we renovated. My career continued advancing, eventually leading to a vice president position. Ethan's investment firm grew, focusing on supporting women-led tech startups. During a dinner with business associates, I learned something that connected past to present. A venture capitalist mentioned working with Leo years earlier. Reynolds, yeah, he and Vance had quite the rivalry in the angel investing space about 7 years back. Vance backed the right startup. Reynolds backed the competitor. Vance's pick got acquired for millions. Reynolds went bankrupt. Later that night, I asked Ethan about this connection. "I was going to tell you eventually," he admitted. "I knew who you were when we met at that conference. Not the details of what happened, but that you had been engaged to Reynolds. Why didn't you say anything? I wanted you to know me for me, not as someone connected to your past." I wasn't angry. Somehow, the cosmic symmetry felt right. 2 years into our marriage, we began trying for a baby. Months passed without success, leading to fertility specialists and difficult conversations. Through disappointments and medical procedures, Ethan remained my rock, holding me through tears and reminding me that family comes in many forms. Then came the devastating call about Mom's cancer diagnosis. Ethan and I flew to Atlanta immediately, meeting with oncologists and helping my parents navigate treatment options. Mom put on a brave face, but the cancer was aggressive and had already spread. I took a leave from work to care for her, moving temporarily back to my childhood home. Ethan flew in every weekend, supporting both me and my increasingly frail father. In her final weeks, Mom and I had precious conversations about life, love, and family. One evening, as I adjusted her pillows, she broached the subject of Mia. "I wish you girls could find peace with each other," she said, her voice weak but determined. "Life is too short for such distance between sisters." "I know, Mom," I replied, swallowing tears. "Promise me you'll try, Chloe. Not for her, but for yourself and maybe a little bit for your old mother." I promised, not knowing if I could keep it, but wanting to give her peace. Mom passed peacefully 3 days later. Ethan, Dad, and I were at her bedside. I called Mia immediately, the first direct communication we'd had in years. "Mom's gone," I said when she answered. Her sharp intake of breath was the only sound for several seconds. "I'll be there in an hour," she finally replied, her voice breaking. We met at our parents' house, hugging briefly and awkwardly before turning our attention to Dad and funeral arrangements. The morning of Mom's funeral dawned gray and drizzly, fitting the somber occasion. I stood before the mirror in my childhood bedroom, adjusting my black dress and wondering how I would survive the day ahead. Ethan appeared behind me, handsome in his dark suit, placing his hands gently on my shoulders. "I'm right beside you today," he said, meeting my eyes in the reflection. "Whatever happens." Downstairs, Dad sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at his untouched coffee. The past week had hollowed him out, his tall frame suddenly stooped with grief. At 72, he seemed to have aged a decade since Mom's diagnosis. "Ready, Dad?" I asked softly, touching his shoulder. He nodded, rising slowly. Grace always said funerals aren't for the dead, they're for the living. Never understood that until now. The funeral home was already filling. When we arrived, I stayed close to Dad, greeting people with mechanical smiles and accepting condolences from faces I barely recognized. Cousins from California, Mom's college roommate, neighbors from throughout my parents' 40 years in their home. "You look just like Grace at your age," my great-aunt Dorothy said, patting my cheek. "She would be proud of the woman you've become." "How have you been, dear?" asked Mom's friend, Eleanor. "Grace mentioned you moved away. Denver, was it?" "Yes, almost 5 years now," I replied, not adding that my sister's betrayal had prompted the move. As I guided Dad to his seat in the front row, Ethan at his other side, a murmur rippled through the gathering. I turned to see Mia and Leo entering, their appearance causing heads to turn and whispers to spread. Mia wore an expensive black dress that highlighted her slender figure, diamond earrings catching the light. Leo looked uncomfortable in his perfectly tailored suit, his arm around my sister's waist in a show of support. Her left hand rested prominently on her purse, the massive diamond engagement ring and wedding band impossible to miss. Dad stiffened beside me. "David, breathe," I whispered, concerned about his heart. They made their way forward, stopping to speak with various attendees. I kept my eyes front, focusing on the large photo of Mom displayed beside her closed casket, her warm smile easing some of my anxiety. Eventually, they reached the front. Mia embraced Dad, who returned the hug stiffly. Leo shook his hand, receiving only a curt nod. "Chloe," Mia said, turning to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "It's been a long time." "Yes," I replied simply, not trusting myself with more words. Leo nodded awkwardly. "Sorry for your loss." Ethan had stepped away to speak with the funeral director, leaving me momentarily alone with them. Mia seized the opportunity. "I need to speak with you privately," she said, gesturing toward a side room. Against my better judgment, I followed her, wanting to avoid a scene at Mom's funeral. The small room contained only a few chairs and a box of tissues, clearly designated for mourners needing private moments. Mia closed the door behind us. Up close, I noticed fine lines around her eyes that her expensive makeup couldn't quite conceal. "You look thin," she remarked, her gaze assessing me critically. "Grief does that," I replied flatly. She fiddled with her ring, twisting it. "Leo and I bought a summer house on the Outer Banks last month. 8 bedrooms, private beach access." I remained silent, wondering why she felt compelled to share this. "We're considering starting a family soon," she continued. "Leo's company just acquired 2 startups, and we're renovating the 3rd floor for a nursery." "Congratulations," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "Is there something specific you wanted to discuss about the funeral arrangements?" Her smile turned sharp. "I just thought you might want to know how well we're doing." "Poor you, still alone at 38. I got the man, the money, and the mansion." The familiar pain flared briefly, then subsided. 6 years ago, her words would have devastated me. Today, they seemed pathetic and desperate. I smiled genuinely. "Have you met my husband yet?" Her expression faltered. "Husband? Ethan?" I called, opening the door to find him waiting nearby. "Come meet my sister." As Ethan entered the room, Leo appeared behind him, clearly watching our interaction. When the men made eye contact, Leo's face drained of color. "Vance," he said, his confident demeanor cracking. "Reynolds." Ethan's tone remained professional but cool. "It's been what, 7 years? Not since Synergy acquired Innovatech instead of your client Global Link, right?" Leo swallowed visibly. "You two are married?" "2 wonderful years now," I confirmed, slipping my hand into Ethan's. "Ethan Vance," Mia repeated slowly. "As in Vance Investments?" "The same," Ethan replied. "Chloe and I met at a tech conference in Austin." Leo attempted to recover his composure. "Vance, we should catch up sometime. I've been meaning to reach out about potential collaborations." "My schedule's quite full," Ethan replied pleasantly but firmly. "But you can contact my office if you'd like." The funeral director appeared, informing us the service was about to begin. As we returned to the main room, whispers followed us, the connection between Ethan and Leo clearly known in business circles. We had just taken our seats when Dad clutched his chest, his face contorting in pain. "Dad," I cried as Ethan immediately called for help. We moved Dad to a private room. The funeral was temporarily delayed. A doctor among the attendees examined him, determining it was likely stress and not another heart attack. Mia followed us, genuine concern on her face. "Is he okay? Should we call an ambulance?" Her voice shook slightly. "The doctor says he's stable," I replied, surprised by her sincerity. "Just overwhelmed." For 20 minutes, we sat together in awkward silence, united only by concern for our father. When he insisted on proceeding, we returned to the main room, the brief crisis creating an unexpected truce. The funeral itself was beautiful and heartbreaking. I delivered a eulogy highlighting Mom's kindness, strength, and unwavering love for her family. When Mia rose to speak after me, she faltered after only a few sentences, tears overwhelming her. Without thinking, I moved to her side, placing a supportive hand on her back. "It's okay," I whispered. "Take your time." She gathered herself, completing her tribute to our mother with stories from our childhood that brought both tears and gentle laughter. At the cemetery, rain fell softly as we laid Mom to rest. I noticed Leo standing apart, checking his watch repeatedly. Mia remained by Dad's side, her earlier bravado replaced by genuine grief. The reception at my parents' house was crowded with well-wishers bringing casseroles and sharing memories. Leo drank heavily, his discomfort evident as several business associates engaged Ethan in animated conversation. I overheard fragments about Leo's company struggling with recent acquisitions and wondered if Mia's boasting had been covering financial troubles. Throughout the day, I maintained the dignity Mom would have expected, focusing on supporting Dad and honoring her memory rather than dwelling on old wounds. As guests departed, I caught Mia watching me from across the room, her expression unreadable but somehow softer. The day after the funeral, Ethan needed to return to Denver for an important board meeting. "Are you sure you'll be okay if I go?" he asked, packing his overnight bag. "I can reschedule." "Dad needs help sorting through Mom's things," I explained. "I should stay a few more days." "I'll be fine." After seeing Ethan off at the airport, I returned to my parents' house to find Dad sitting in Mom's garden, a photo album open on his lap. "She labeled everything," he said, showing me Mom's neat handwriting beneath each photo. Said, "Someday we'd appreciate knowing who is who." That afternoon, I began the painful task of sorting through Mom's closet. Each dress held memories, the blue one from my college graduation, the floral print she wore to Sunday brunches, the elegant gray she'd chosen for my engagement party. I found myself talking to her as I worked, telling her about my life in Denver, my work, my happiness with Ethan. In her bedside drawer, I discovered a journal bound in soft leather. Inside, Mom had written periodic entries over the past decade. Many mentioned her daughters, her hopes for our reconciliation, her sadness at the rift between us. The final entry, dated just 2 weeks before her death, read, "My greatest regret is leaving with my girls still estranged. Grace always fixed things, but I couldn't fix this. I pray they find their way back to each other somehow." The doorbell rang as I wiped away tears. Through the front window, I saw Mia standing alone on the porch. No sign of Leo's car in the driveway. Dad had gone to his brother's for dinner, leaving me to face my sister alone. I opened the door, uncertain what to expect. "Hi," she said simply. "Can I come in?" In the kitchen, I made coffee while Mia sat silently at the table. She looked different without Leo beside her, smaller somehow, less artificially composed. "Where's Leo?" I finally asked, placing a mug before her. "At home? He doesn't know I'm here." She wrapped her hands around the mug but didn't drink. I told him I needed space after the funeral. The silence stretched between us. Years of unspoken words, creating an almost physical barrier. "I'm sorry about yesterday," she finally said. What I said in that room at the funeral home, it was cruel and completely inappropriate. I nodded, acknowledging her apology without immediately accepting it. "I saw Mom's journal," she continued. "Dad showed it to me last night. Her last wish was for us to reconcile." "I found it, too," I replied. "But reconciliation requires more than just proximity, Mia. It needs honesty." She looked up, tears filling her eyes. "You want honesty? Here's honesty. I'm miserable, Chloe. Have been almost since the beginning." The dam broke then, words pouring out between sobs. Leo had changed shortly after their wedding, becoming controlling and critical. His business had been struggling for years, each new acquisition an attempt to save a sinking ship. The houses, the cars, the vacations were all leveraged on mounting debt. Their marriage was a carefully constructed facade, maintained for business connections and social standing. "He monitors my spending, checks my phone, questions my every move," she admitted. "The Leo you knew? He doesn't exist anymore." "Maybe he never did." "Why stay?" I asked. "Shame," she answered immediately. "How could I admit what I'd done to you? Destroyed our family for something that turned out to be a mirage. And then there's the prenup. I leave with nothing." I pushed Mom's journal across the table. "Read the rest of her entries." As Mia read, fresh tears flowed. She looked up eventually, face raw with emotion. She knew. She saw through everything. "Mom always did," I agreed. "I've hated myself for years," Mia whispered. "Every time Mom mentioned you, every accomplishment of yours she proudly shared. I felt the weight of what I'd done. I'm planning to leave him, Chloe. I've been secretly consulting a lawyer." My feelings were complicated. Vindication mixed with unexpected compassion. The sister who had caused me such pain was suffering consequences I wouldn't have wished on anyone. "I don't expect forgiveness," she continued. "I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know the truth before I blow up my life again." We spent the next hours looking through Mom's belongings together, sharing memories both painful and precious. Mia recalled Mom teaching us to bake cookies, how she never mixed the separate batches because I liked chocolate chip and Mia preferred sugar cookies. "Remember how she used to leave notes in our lunchboxes?" Mia asked, smiling through tears. "Different messages every day." "She never repeated one," I nodded. We weren't instantly healed, the wounds too deep for immediate closure. But as evening fell, something had shifted between us. Mom's love created a fragile bridge across years of hurt. "What will you do?" I asked as Mia prepared to leave. "File for divorce when my lawyer says the timing is right. Rent a small apartment. Start over." She paused at the door. "What about you? Will you go back to Denver?" "Yes, my life is there now, with Ethan." "You seem happy," she said, a statement rather than a question. "I am truly happy. I'm glad. One of us should be." We hugged briefly, awkwardly, before she left. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. Back in Denver, I settled into life with Ethan, our brownstone, and my rewarding career. 6 months after Mom's funeral, I discovered I was pregnant after years of trying. The joy was tempered with sadness that Mom wouldn't meet her grandchild, but I felt her presence in quiet moments. Mia and I maintained cautious contact through occasional phone calls. She had filed for divorce and moved into a modest apartment, finding work at a small marketing firm. The gossip and judgment she faced in Atlanta's social circles was difficult, but she seemed determined to rebuild authentically. The path that led me here was never one I would have chosen. Losing Leo had seemed like the end of my world, but it had actually been the beginning of a far better one. With Ethan, I found not just love, but partnership, respect, and unwavering support. His success never overshadowed mine. It complemented it, each of us growing stronger together. Mom had been right about forgiveness being for ourselves rather than others. The weight of anger and resentment had lifted gradually, allowing me to see my past with clarity and my future with hope. The scars remained, but they no longer define me. As I sat in our nursery, Ethan painting the walls a soft green, I thought about the lessons I would someday share with our child, how loss can lead to finding, how endings create space for beginnings, how the hardest moments often direct us toward our truest path. My life had become richer and more authentic than I could have imagined during those dark days 6 years ago. Not despite the incident, but because of how it forced me to rebuild with greater wisdom and intention. Have you ever experienced a painful loss that eventually led you to something better?